What Were They Thinking is brought to you by HostGator. HostGator is a leading provider of shared, reseller, VPS, and dedicated hosting solutions. Award-winning support is available 24/7, 365 days a year via phone, email, and live chat. Discover why over 9 million websites trust HostGator. Use the coupon code SCHLOCK for 25% off your first purchase. That's SCHLOCK, SCHLOCK, for 25% off your first purchase.
What Were They Thinking is brought to you today by GameItAll.com. Whether it's video game news, the latest in music, or movie reviews, GameItAll.com is your one-stop shop for all nerdy talk.
Oh man, all these wrestling news sites are terrible.
What's the matter, young lad?
Ah, Mother Superior! No, don't hit me! I can't find a good wrestling news site.
A good wrestling news site? What's so good about a good wrestling news site anyway?
Well, I just need a place where I can get all the backstage news and rumors and scoop.
All right.
Don't hit me. I left the orphanage a while ago.
All right, listen, Billy's younger brother. I'm not going to hit you this time.
Oh, thank you.
But I will tell you about a great wrestling news site.
Okay. It's not terrible like the last one, right?
It's not terrible like the last one. It's called WrestlingNewsWorld.com. You can get all the latest wrestling news, spoilers, results, all the news from all over the wrestling world.
That sounds great.
No, yes, but you know what?
What?
It's not going to sound great if you keep up with that mouth of yours.
Oh, okay. Yeah, again, I left the orphanage a while ago. If you don't leave, I'm gonna tell my parents.
I have legal precedent over 37 states. Get back here!
No! Stop hitting me! No!
WrestlingNewsWorld.com.
Two pods, a day, 2 pods a day, 2 pods a day. Have you signed up for 2 pods a day? Okay, I lied. You're not gonna sign up, but you know what? We're part of a great promotion called 2 pods a day, and I've mentioned it countless times on the show, but I'm gonna mention it again because I fucking can. You can follow 2 pods a day on Twitter, on Facebook, and basically, what is 2 pods a day? Well, thank you for asking. I'll tell you. 2 pods a day is a promotion during the months of January and February. February is the current month, of course, for those of you out there who are not in the know. And basically, yeah, so every day of those months, 2 pods a day introduces you to 2 different independent podcasts that you may not have found just, browsing around the interwebs. Because we all know the big ones. We're all well aware of the big podcasts with the financial backing and the Russian hacker schemes. I don't think any podcast is like that. But anyway, I digress. Check it out. Follow them on Twitter. Follow them on Facebook. Like them on Facebook. Share the posts. Listen to the podcasts. You might find one that you really, really like. I guarantee you'll find a bunch that you like. So, that is all for me. Now let's get to this very special episode.
Oh, Nathan's excited for this one.
So excited!
Mostly, behind the scenes, guys, we just wrapped this, and now we're doing the introduction, so Nathan already knows what's coming up. He's very excited.
I was excited even beforehand.
Yep, he sure was. It was a lot of fun. So, you're probably like, what are you talking about? But if you saw the title of this episode, you know what's coming. We got to interview the director of many a ninja film as well. American Ninja, which we did here on the show. Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3, Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo, and a very well-known actress in her kind of first role.
Mm-hmm.
Because we interviewed Sam Firstenberg.
Yes!
And that is Nathan's. That is what is left of Nathan's English. So here we go. Check it out. It's coming up right now. All right, welcome everyone to a very special episode. I am Brendan.
I am Nathan.
And we have a very special guest with us here today. He directed many different films. American Ninja, Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo, Avenging Force, Cyborg Cop, tons and tons and tons of movies, worked with Golden Globus, Canon Films. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sam Firstenberg.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be with you.
Well, first of all, I said this before we started recording, but I'll say it again. Thank you very much for joining us here. Absolute pleasure.
Yes, I'm a huge fan.
Well, you guys are welcome. I enjoy to do these interviews, and I always happy to know that there are still fans of the genre B movies of the 80s and the 90s.
Oh,
And I know there are, but it's always nice to know that there are even more.
Oh, yeah, the audience is out there, trust me. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. I guess we'll start, maybe get a little bit of background information, kind of where it all began, where you kind of got interested in becoming a filmmaker.
Listen, I was a kid and I was watching movies through my childhood and boyhood and my high school years. I always loved movies. And it was in Jerusalem, in Israel. I saw a lot of movies. We grew up on doses of action movies, westerns, war movies. This is, we are talking about the 50s and the 60s, a lot of westerns. And then I served in the army, in the Israeli military, and when I finished, I was 21 years old. This is now 71 or 72. I've decided to go to Hollywood to get involved in studying film. And so I did. I came to Los Angeles and got myself enrolled in a film school, Columbia College of Hollywood, and I started to learn film. I was lucky enough that even before I graduated, I already started to work with people, with production companies, with television, all kind of jobs, cameraman, electric, grip, art department, whatever. Eventually assistant director in many movies. And when I was 28, I served as an assistant director in so many movies. And this was not my goal, of course. I wanted to be the one who tells the stories, to be the director. So I stopped it and I came back to Los Angeles for graduate studies at Loyola Marymount University, also in movie making. And while I was in school in Loyola Marymount, this is now 1978, 79, with friends, I made a movie. I directed a full feature, full-length movie, which, by the way, Kirstie Alley was discovered in this movie, the actress Kirstie Alley. And then since I knew the producers, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, and I worked with them before as assistant director, and they just bought the Canon Film Company. They bought it and they restarted it as a production company, and they liked the movie that I made in college. It was, the name of the movie is One More Chance. They took it for distribution and they assigned me to direct another movie, action movie, which was called Revenge of the Ninja. And that's the beginning of my career as an action movies director. The director of an action movies.
Oh, well, and I wanted to, we're obviously lots and lots of movies come after this, but I just want to touch on the Kirstie Alley thing for a second, because this movie, One More Chance, we had just read earlier today, actually, that it took I don't know if this is true, but it said that it took 18 months to film, and you're only able to film on the weekends. What was the kind of strain of continuity and stuff on a shoot like that?
Well, what you read is correct. When I started my graduate studies, one of the assignments in graduate school, film school, is to make a short movie. Let's say 25, 30 minutes. Every student or every 2 or 3 students together. I already, since I had so much experience already as assistant director working in features, I've decided that I'm going to make a full feature instead of 30 minutes. A full-length movie. I wrote a script. So first it was by the school. It was approved by the school as a 30-minute movie, which is part of the year and a half. It should be done through a year and a half when you go to school. But I already decided to make a full feature secretly, and I met one of the students that was willing to become a producer. His name is David Wormark. Since then, he's a famous producer in Hollywood today. And together we launched, and we convinced the school, the faculty of the film department, that it will be a good idea to make it into a class. And so all the students will have the experience. I had enough of an experience as assistant director. But the thing was that we could shoot only in the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. Mm-hmm. And therefore, this is the reason that it took a year and a half to shoot. So every Saturday and Sunday. So during the week, we would plan and prepare production. And came Saturday, Sunday, almost every week, not every weekend. And all the people who were involved and other volunteers and the actors will get together and we'll shoot few scenes or 2 scenes and continue the next weekend. That's the reason it took such a long time. During casting, we mentioned Kirstie Alley. During casting, actors came in. We had one lady who was a casting director, was willing to help us. And one of the people that came to read one of the parts, one of the lead parts, was a young acting student, Kirstie Alley, and this was her first part in a real movie.
Cool.
We wrapped up at the end when we were almost toward the end, so we kind of gathered some money and we shot for 1 week, full week, or week and a half just to finish everything because it already was too long. And the main actor, Johnny LaMatta, was willing to be with us, to stay with us for a year and a half. And eventually we just put it together, of course, then editing, post-editing, music, etc., sound, and then the company took it for distribution. And when I say company, I mean Canon Film.
Okay, well
yeah, go ahead.
That actually leads right into a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to talk to you about, especially because a lot of your your canon stuff, not only the American Ninja movies, but also Revenge of the Ninja and Ninja 3, are huge parts of some of the first action movies that I really got exposed to as a kid, and like the whole ninja craze was right at that time. And I wanted to kind of ask about working with Golan Globus, the Canon Group. You said you knew them as well, but I've seen like the documentary that was done about them, and just what was it like working with them? Because a lot of people have said that it was a lot more by the seat of your pants. It was a lot more hands-on as opposed to like boardroom decisions and stuff like that. Like it wouldn't be uncommon for them to be right in the trenches with you guys making these movies.
Shortly, let me tell you about them. Menahem Golan and his Yoram Globus was his cousin, younger than him and cousin. They had the biggest production company in Israel in the 1960s, 1970s. But they had a dream, and they produced a lot of movies in Israel, and they had an office in Tel Aviv, production and distribution. But they had a dream to go to Hollywood. They always wanted to go to Hollywood. Eventually, they made like one big movie, Israeli movie that made good money. It was a musical, Casablanca, and they sold it to some company in Hollywood for distribution. With the money that they made, they produced a movie in Hollywood with Tony Curtis. The name of the movie was Lepke, gangster movie. It was right after Godfather, so it was fashionable. And this when I joined them. I met them. I was a student in Los Angeles, and I met them, and I worked. I was like a general assistant in the movie, and that's where I met with them. They made 2 movies here. Another movie, The Four Deuces, with Jack Palance, which I was also a general assistant. And then it didn't work out for them. They moved back to Israel. For me, it was a chance. I moved back with them to Israel, and I became an assistant director in many movies that they produce. Eventually, around 1978, they produced 2 movies that made good money. One of them was Operation Thunderbolt, and the other one, Lemon Pepsicle. Those 2 movies made so much money that they had enough money, and they bought a failing company, a small distribution company from New York, which was called Canon Film. Now, those 2 people that we are mentioning, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, one of them, Menahem Golan, was more of the creative person. He was a director. He would direct movies, write script, and deal with the creative part of the company. The other one, his cousin, Yoram Globus, was dealing more with the financial side of the company. So he was not really in the trenches. He was always with the banks and the money and the distribution. But Menahem Golan was very involved in writing the script, coming up with the ideas, and in general in creative. Now, of course, this was not a big company. It was not a Disney. It was not Universal. So you didn't have all those departments and so many different elements that you have to deal with while you make the movie, like the writing department, the financial department, the casting department. It was, as you said before, hand-on. It was all him. And it was a small company. So they were in charge of the casting. They were involved in the writing. I was lucky enough, it must be said that I was lucky enough that they left me alone. They did not bother me.
Now,
so even when we made this first movie, Revenge of the Ninja,
so good.
Kind of, they sent me away to do it. The movie was not done in Hollywood. The office was here in Hollywood, and our shooting was in Utah, in Salt Lake City. So occasionally, somebody would come, either because of budgetary reasons or other reasons. But Menahem Golan really got involved when we were doing the editing, post-production. Since the movie was kind of a success, they really did not bother me a lot during all the movies that I made with them. But your statement is correct. It was a company that was down to earth. People just worked and made movies. It was not a company that was dealing with the premieres and parties and and the glitz of Hollywood, but rather the sweat and blood of Hollywood.
That's really cool to hear because, a lot of the movies that they did and a lot of the movies that you worked with them on, like the other Ninja movies and then Breakin 2, with those movies, because you feel like they trusted you, as you said, to make the movie, and because they were a lot smaller, do you feel that actually helped enhance the movies to make them more the story that you wanted to portray, as opposed to them constantly, or like say with a major movie studio where you hear stories where they're constantly getting in and putting their hands on and taking things out from your as a director?
Correct. Even I never had the chance to work for a big studio, but I through the years I've visited a big set of big store of big movies. I have friends who work in big studio movies, and you're right. They limit the creator, the director, or whatever, because they have their own system and mechanism and machine. When we are talking about the major studios, and Canon was a smaller company, and they let the different directors, not only me, you can take Joe Zito, Toby Hooper, they kind of left us alone to do whatever we wanted. But we have to say that there is the stamp of Canon. Canon made certain type of movies. Mm-hmm. So it was not totally freehand. Only John Cassavetes made he made a movie that was out of the genre of the canon film. Because he was famous, John Cassavetes.
Right.
But otherwise, all of us, we stayed within the type of movies that Canon made. We couldn't veer too much to the right and to the left. But this was it was what it was. This was, and today it's recognizable. People call it the Canon look. People are talking about the Canon feel or the Canon look.
Well, yeah, because
we had to stay within this genre.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, actually, when I'm even myself now, when I'm watching movies that are sometimes they might get a beating from the critics or whatnot in a movie at the movie theater, but when you watch the movie, it's done with so much gusto that it almost feels like, I said before, that felt like if this was made in the 80s, it would be a canon movie, because it was over the top enough to grab my attention and keep me entertained. The critics can trash it all they want, but I was entertained, and at the end of the day, that's really the most important part of the movie-going experience.
Right. So Menahem Golan, the head of the company, he gave the tone. He was a larger-than-life person. His personality and his storytelling, the way his thinking was larger than life, and he gave the tone to the company. After all, he approved the scripts, and as I told you guys, he was involved in editing. So everything that you're talking about, this gusto, this larger-than-life type of movies, are the influence of Menahem Golan. That was the head of the company, because he dictated the general tone of the type of the movies, the character of the movies that Canon will make. Correct.
So the rumors of that Canon was going to make a Gone with the Wind remake are not true?
Never heard about Gone with the Wind, but they had the right the right to Superman. They made it.
Yeah.
They made one terribly failed Superman.
Well, they actually at one point were apparently set to make a Spider-Man movie too that didn't materialize, unfortunately.
They had the right also to this, but this was toward the end and never came to fruition. But here and there they had the rights, and they tried to do. The company tried to do some few big movies. I don't know the story about Gone with the Wind. Never heard Gone with the Wind.
I definitely made that up.
I see. But but Superman is true. The story with Superman is true.
And a lot of the stuff that you had done, I guess it did play well in theaters. But I mean, how much was the I guess the home rental market being such a burgeoning market at that time? How big was that a factor into the movies and the way you guys made the movies?
It was huge. We are talking now about a period that, things came together. All the stars aligned. Canon and other company, Corelco, it was not only Canon. Canon and Corelco, companies outside the major system, the established system of Universal, Fox, and Warner, and the big ones. They seized an opportunity. They saw an opportunity. The opportunity was the beginning of the home video market. Many of you, which are a little bit older, remember the rental stores all around. In every corner, in every neighborhood, there was a rental store. And the major studios did not pay attention to it. Like in the beginning, the big television station did not pay attention to the cable. The beginning of cable. So the studios did not pay attention to that there is money to make in those renting video cassette, VHS, beta cassettes. But the other companies, Canon, Corelco, and those companies, they realize that there is money there. They can make money. And so we made this type of movies they did not have the budget of major, so they are not considered A movie, but so what we call B movie, lower budget movies, medium budget movies, and many of them went directly to the cassette market, or what they used to call the home rental, the home entertainment market, and that's how they made money. Because they have been, they sold it to those companies who distributed it. And this went on through the 80s and the beginning, the first part of the first half of the 90s, until the studios decided, hey, the big major studios decided, they say, oh, well, there is money here. Why are they making those kind of movies? We will make these movies. And, and they took over Schwarzenegger and they took over Stallone, which started with the small companies. And the studio started to make the same movies, but for the big budget, huge movies, True Lies, etc., the big movies. But they are the same type of movies with big. So it worked. We were lucky. Everything worked for us. The companies made good money from this home video, but some of the movies here and there, and which will lead us to, let's say, Electric Boogaloo or American Ninja, within this low-budget genre, they were good enough that they exploded also theatrically.
And I would say that this is just my guess, but with American Ninja, because that was a big one. That was obviously a big one for you. Would you say that was like the biggest budget you had to work with?
No, it was not the biggest budget, but it was the biggest moneymaker from all the movies that I've directed. I think I spent, I had a bigger budget in the movie Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo. Mm-hmm. I had even more money when I directed the movie Delta Force No. 3, which was almost a big budget movie.
Well, and Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo, I guess I want to ask, because almost your whole film, you mostly done action films. And so Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo really stands out for me because it's just kind of that one that's one of these things is not like the other. How did that kind of come about to do that film?
So, I directed so Canon was thriving, doing very well, and I was directing one movie after the other. I was just lucky, I made one movie, it was successful, Revenge of the Ninja, then they handed me another script, and so on and so on. One after the other. Even when I directed Revenge of the Ninja, was already a sequel to another movie which was Enter the Ninja, which I did not direct. So I was already in the business of directing sequels, right? Now here, while I was busy and I'm directing the movie Ninja 3: The Domination, Canon, the company, makes a movie called Breakin. And I did not direct, another director, Joel Silber. Huge success. The movie was a huge success. They wanted to make a sequel, and for some reason that I don't know why, beyond my knowledge, the original director was not hired to direct the sequel. They wanted to make a sequel, and they turned to me, really, just like this. They turned to me and said, well, we have an action movie. And I knew the actress. I knew Lucinda, because Lucinda was in Ninja 3: The Domination, right? And I casted her to Ninja 3: The Domination. So I already knew the actress, and they turned to me and said, what do you think about doing a dance movie rather than action? And, I did not enter this movie business really with the intention to become an action director, just movie director. Yeah, I love James Bond. I love Westerns, but not necessarily action only. And I do love music and musicals and dance. And so I was thinking about it. I figured out, I said, it's really not a big difference. There is not a big difference between action and dance movie, because you have a story, you have the scene going on, and then you have the numbers, the action numbers, the fight or the chase, which are, like mini stories within the story. Same thing with the dance movie. The story goes on, and then you have a dance, which then expresses a certain idea in the dramatic development of the story. So, okay, instead of choreographing, dealing with a choreographed fight, now I have to deal with a choreographed dance. So basically, I thought about it. I told them, sure, no problem. I'll do it. The director does not choreograph the fight. and the director does not choreograph the dance. There is a choreographer, dance choreographer, and there is a fight choreographer. And the director interprets it. So my job is to interpret what they do, and I had no problem to do it.
That's actually, like, with Breakin' too, there's a really cool scene in that movie where Turbo is, like, dancing on the walls and the ceilings, and I heard you guys actually built that rotating room so they could do that. Like, how long would something like that take, like, logistically, and, like, did it cut into the budget a lot?
Okay, number one, this is not an original idea. You probably know, movie fans would know Fred Astaire did it 30 or 40 years earlier. He danced on the ceiling. Forget the name of the movie. And then Menahem Golan, it was not in the original script. While we were shooting, in the middle of shooting, he calls me in and he says, "Wow, I have an idea. Why don't we have this number of dancing on the walls and the ceiling?" I said, "Okay, no problem." I immediately I knew the technical, by logic, I knew how to do it. And you're building. The way to do it is to build a room, and a room sits within a mechanism that rotates the room upside down. It's called the gamble, and all the lights. If you have windows in this room, if the room is with no windows, there is no problem at all. But anyway, the lights have to rotate with the room. As the room rotates with this big mechanism drum, it's a huge drum. Imagine a huge drum and the room is in the middle of this huge drum, and all rotates, everything rotates with the lights, together with the lights. And if you have an outside, you see stuff through the window, everything that you see through the window have to rotate together. And we had windows and door, and the preparation, building it, I don't know. The building was done while I was busy shooting other scenes, so I don't know how long it took to build it. And it was there was one set which was regular set of the same room, which was not rotating, and another one, a duplicate rotating. So the two similar sets, duplicate. And we did the dance in one day.
Wow.
Cool.
But the mechanical people, there was a special crew just building it. It was not, we didn't take our crew subtract from the movie crew. A special crew was hired to make carpenters, I don't know, metal people, whoever can do it, was hired to build this mechanism and room. And we had to hire a special cameraman, and I will explain why. Because when the room rotates with the light, also the cameraman who is attached to the floor, when the room rotates and the ceiling becomes the floor, the cameraman is upside down. So the best cameramen to do it are aerial cameramen who are not getting disoriented when they are moving from side to side, Suddenly they're upside down, and suddenly they're upside right, or suddenly they're on the side. So aerial cameramen have this sense of not losing the direction where they are at any moment in the rotation.
I love the idea. I love this idea of approaching you and be like, you know what? I think we need to add a scene with this giant set.
This was crazy, and I'll explain why this movie was crazy. The movie was crazy, not. And just by the way, just to explain, the dancer always dances on the floor. For him, from a dancing point of view, he dances on the floor, and the room moves around. When the ceiling becomes floor, physical floor, he's still dancing on the ceiling, but the ceiling is horizontal with us on the real world. Mm-hmm. And we added one twist. We had the girlfriend coming in. When he's on the ceiling, she comes on the floor. But in reality, she was on the ceiling and he was on the floor. And everything was upside down. And she was attached to the ceiling. I'll explain you. The movie, the first movie, Breakin, was a good success. Was a big success. MGM distributed it, and then Canon wanted to do a sequel, Breakin 2, and they came up with the name Electric Boogalo, attached to it in 2 Electric Boogalo, and they pre-sold the movie to another big company, TriStar. TriStar was Columbia. It was a subsidiary of Columbia Pictures. So suddenly, when we are now making a movie, and it's already sold to a big distribution company that really want to open it big in the summer or something. So that's why the Canon company was really trying hard, and they didn't mind pouring money to this. This was a nine-week shoot. It was pretty big movie, not as big as a major studio movie, but not, we can call it a medium budget. $5.5 million in the 80s. It's a lot of money. $5.5-6 million. And 9 weeks of shooting with 2 units, it's a pretty big movie. There is one scene with 3,000 extras in the street. Wow. So it was not that's why things were added. There are scenes which are not in the final editing. The production was pretty big, so there were a few scenes we cut out in the editing because they were not to our liking or to the level that we felt that it needed to be. And indeed, a big success, theatrical and cultural and theatrical.
Yeah, it definitely has a place in pop culture. I don't know, famous or infamy, one way or the other, but yeah, it is definitely synonymous, like kind of with the 80s and definitely with canon. So much so that the subtitle Electric Boogaloo gets kind of referenced as far as like sequels that come along for a movie. You're like, I didn't think they'd ever make it, but here it is. Scary Movie 2, Electric Boogaloo. Now,
yes, you're right. It just happened.
With the earlier, again, with the ninja movies, you worked with 2 of my favorite like genre guys from those movies in Sho Kosugi and Michael Dudikoff. What was it like working with those guys? Just because I've never heard too much about Sho Kosugi and how he is as like someone to work with, and I've heard up and down things about Michael Dudikoff. So you clearly worked with him a lot. So he's obviously a nice enough guy to say I want to keep working with him.
Yes, they were 2 different type of people, of course. And Sho Kosugi, I inherited him. His story was when Canon made the movie Enter the Ninja, he was the villain. Mm-hmm. The choreographer of the was Mike Stone himself, champion in some karate, and he brought in Sho Kosugi to be the villain in the movie. Sho grew up in Japan, and through his childhood and through the year, he went through all kind of training of martial art, and part of it, he had a lot of knowledge about with the ninjutsu, with the art of ninjutsu. His style was, I think, it's one of, and he was already a master. He was already a master with students, with few schools of teaching, and he decided to move from Japan to. He wanted to become Jackie, one of the stars at the time in the 70s and the 80s. There were a lot of Hong Kong martial art movies, Chinese martial art movies, and he wanted to be one of them. And he from Japan to Los Angeles, and was looking for his luck, and somehow he landed this part of the villain in Enter the Ninja. And so when he was very impressive because he knew the stuff. He was the real thing, He was a master, black belt, and etc. He really was good. And they were so impressed with him that they decided to build the sequel, Revenge of the Ninja, around him as a hero. So when I came in, when I was asked to direct the movie, he was already attached. It had nothing to do with it. And I didn't know much about martial art movies. My knowledge was more of samurai movies, Japanese samurai movies, Akira Kurosawa movies. I was not familiar with the Hong Kong style of to call what they used to call at the time kung fu movies. And Shaw realized that I don't know, and he, let's say, took me under his wing to teach me, to show me. And he showed me a lot of those Hong Kong movies, the martial art movies of Hong Kong, and gave me the basics, knowledge about ninjutsu, ninja, recommended the books that I should read, all the different weapons. Now, during the filming, he was the choreographer of the fights. So he had a group of students, of his students who came with him, and Sensei, he was the master, and they performed they were doubling whenever we needed action doubles for the different characters and actors. He used the pool of his people. He choreographed the fights, and of course he performed his part. He didn't need a double. He was the hero of the movie. No double. He did everything by himself, except some complicated flips that you don't want to put your main actor in jeopardy. And the thing about him, I must say that he was like a ballet dancer, really. I enjoyed so much just sitting back on my chair, on the director chair, and watching the way he performs and the way he does the stuff. And so this was the way to work with him. But he was Japanese. He came from Japan, and there was a certain cultural code of, and he came from Japan and from the world of martial art, which I was not. I'm not, not familiar with the Japanese culture or the martial art culture. So there is a code and the way and ways of behavior. So he kept this level among him and his students, and I had to adjust a little bit to come toward him with the cultural, to accommodate his cultural and his status in the martial art. But in the other hand, I must admit that he agreed with me, and it was easy to pull him toward the Western, so to speak, kind of action movies, which I wanted to make. I didn't want to make a Hong Kong kung fu movie. I wanted to make a James Bond movie, right? So, and the final result of Revenge of the Ninja is a mixture of martial art and what we call straight action. He came our way, I bended his way, and as I say, it was really pleasure to do and work with him. Michael Dudikoff does not have this kind of huge background in martial art. He probably took some classes like many American kids at the time, and he knew basic. But we had on the set Mike Stone. Mike Stone was a martial artist, was a champion of judo, one of the styles, the American champion, just like Chuck Norris. And Mike Stone was the personal trainer of Elvis Presley. So he was on the set all the time, and he guided Michael into the martial art. Now Michael Dudikoff is very athletic to begin with, no problem to ask him to do anything. Obviously was more Western-oriented than Kosugi in the term of the type of movie that he wanted to make and the type of hero he wanted to be. Was not concerned about purity of martial art as much as Kosugi, but rather let's make a good action movie. And so it reflects itself in the character. And but there was Michael did a lot, most of the stuff that he had to do by himself. Here and there, somebody would double him for some dangerous stuff or some specific moves or on the fights, etc. But he did most of the stuff by himself, and very athletic. And both of them were very enthusiastic people about movie making. Both of them, Kosugi, Michael, very enthusiastic about movie making. and action movies. So it was easy and nice to work with them. Sho Kosugi moved back to Japan. I believe he lives now in Japan, so there is no contact with him. Michael Dudikoff lives not far from me, so we are in contact occasionally. We kept friends. We are friends, and we see each other once in a while, talk.
Cool.
That's where it stands.
Well, that's cool because you, like Nathan was saying, you worked with Michael a lot, so it's good to see. So you still kind of maintain that friendship, that relationship to this day.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Now, with that, I mean...
Well, Michael was... it's very difficult in the movie business to determine ahead of time who will have this charisma, who has this what's called screen presence. And not every actor has this magical secret ingredient that makes him a star with a tremendous screen presence, charisma on the screen. Michael had it right away. I saw it the minute I saw him. The minute he walked in. He already made one movie before American Ninja. He was in a movie by Albert Payun that was also a director in Canon. Electroactive Dreams. And he was on television series before that, and even in the movie Bachelor Party, the small part with Tom Hanks. But he came in to audition for American Ninja, and I kind of felt it. When I liked him, we did some tests, some video tests, and we felt it immediately. Michael is a guy with a screen presence, star quality. So. And then very hard to define why he is so, but he is.
Now you've with I guess with Michael Dudikoff, and also another name that actually pops up a lot in your I guess list of movies that you've done is David Bradley. Now, have you with guys like him and with Michael Dudikoff and I guess even Steve James to an extent, because he was in just about all the American Ninja movies. Do you find that you like to pull in guys like that again and again instead of venturing out to try to find another face, or is it more of a situation where the studio says, we've worked with him before, we want to keep working with him, we think he's going to be the next big thing?
Your latest statement is more correct. When a studio, when a company, they see that they are doing good with somebody. So they did well with Michael Dudikoff. The tickets are selling, and it's easy. They sell the movies to foreign companies. When I say foreign companies, I mean distribution companies in Germany, Japan, etc., in other countries. The buyers, what we call the buyers, they demand. And companies say, it went well with Michael Dudikoff, and he's good on the screen. Let's make another movie with him. So many times it's who will be the star of a movie is dictated by the company. They don't really care about the other parts, and the director is free to do whatever he wants. But they would sometimes they have demands regarding to who will be the star, and that's how those movies are sold. They sold, motion picture movies are the medium of the stars. That's how movies are being sold. Audiences in general don't really care, who is the art director, and they don't care who is the director, but they know that this is a movie with Meryl Streep or Jean-Luc Van Damme. That's how movies are sold. So
I would love to see a Jean-Claude Van Damme Meryl Streep movie, by the way.
Yeah, you're right, but yes, they are detected. So Michael was eventually hired by Canon Film, and he worked for them a lot. And later on, David Bradley started with Canon, but Canon faded, went into bankruptcy, and New Image. I started to make movies for New Image, another company which was the same mold of Canon. And David came with us and continued with New Image. And we mentioned Van Damme. Van Damme started with Canon, but somehow he worked up his way into the studio system, made to a few Universal movies. So yes, and it's easier if the same kind if it is the same kind of movie. If you make American Ninja number 2, why not use the American Ninja? You know? Makes sense. If you make Cyber Cop and then Cyber Cop number 2, why don't use David Bradley again? He's already the the truth is that the major studios are doing the same thing. When they make a sequel, they try to use the same actor.
Yeah, for sure. There was another thing.
So I had good relationship with those guys, so no reason, I didn't have any fighting or bad relationship with them or some. I was friend with David Bradley, friend with Michael Dudikoff, so why not? We had a good time.
Now, there was another movie, Nathan, you're going to have to help me out. What the name of that again, sorry?
I'm just getting it right here. Just 1 second. It's definitely the kind of another one of those situations where it's one of these things is not like the other. The Interplanetary Surplus Male and Amazon Women of Outer Space.
Yeah, long title.
Yeah.
I'll tell you guys, it's an interesting story. I was approached by a friend who wanted to produce a movie, sci-fi, and he came to me with a script, and I read the script, and the sci-fi, this script, the whole script had this feel of the sci-fi movies of the 40s, of the strange movies of the 40s and the early 50s, Women's on the Moon. It was a series of movies at the time in the 40s and in the 50s, which were the B movies playing in the double ticket, the second movie. And they were all low budget with laser guns and with robots and with strange flying saucers. It was a genre that at the time, and the script had the same feeling. And he wanted me to direct it. And I said, listen, his name was Elliot, the director, the producer. I said, Elliot, it's not, we are now at the end of the 90s or the 2000s already. And I say, you cannot sell a movie like this nowadays. But if we make a parody, if we try to make some fun of this kind of movies, of this particular genre of sci-fi, of the low-budget sci-fi, I will be glad to get involved. And so we did. So he agreed, and we changed the script a little bit, and we took it into making parody, making fun, a little bit comical, and that's how this movie came to light, and that's how we made this movie. It's a very low-budget movie, so I never saw any big distribution or any big success, but it's pretty funny in a ridiculous way. In a parodical way, make fun of those movies, the sci-fi movies of the 40s,
okay,
and the 50s.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I just want to before we kind of wrap up here. I don't know. I saw this on IMDb, so I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. But it looks like you have something coming up, or that you're producing this year. Is that correct?
Listen. Beside you, somebody else told me the same story.
Okay.
No, I'm not involved. No, I'm not involved. No. Right. There is a group of people, and I believe they acquired the name of the title of the company, Canon Film. I believe so. I'm not that involved.
Oh.
And they want to produce another breakdance movie. And I was approached it's already 2 or 3 or even 4 years ago, if I don't mind to lend my name as a producer, but I am not involved and I'm not actively involved. I don't even know if it will ever happen.
I've actually
Hopefully
heard of these.
It will. But But somebody else told me that my name is attached to as a producer to some movies. But I never produced before in my life. I was never involved in production through this whole my movie career, which some 30, 40 years I always directed only. And here and there I was involved in writing, but never in producing, never. I don't have the skills that it takes to produce a movie.
It's interesting because
different.
Yeah, there are very few details on it as well, so that's why I was like kind of hesitant if it was accurate or not.
And I don't know much about it. The truth.
It's been a really big, a huge honor to be able to talk to you about these movies and stuff, because I know I did my best not to gush too much during the interview stuff, but a lot of the stuff that you did, especially in like the Canon films, the American Ninja movies, the Ninja movies, as a kid, they were some of the first exposures of action movies for me, and a lot of times my dad, because he's a big fan of action movies, so a lot of the stuff that you directed with Canon was actually the kind of movies that I would often watch with my dad, and would really they kind of help, I guess, make us closer as I grew up. I'm not saying this like he's dead; he's still very much alive. But I do want to say thank you so much for all the movies that you made, because again, they were a huge part of my movie going experience as a kid. Because home rentals were the way to go for us. We did not get a chance to go out to the theaters a lot, so movies like yours were a lot of time was some really good quality time for me and my dad.
I'm happy to hear what you're saying, and let me tell you, the movies that I have directed for Canon, action movies, they were always had this kind of intention that they will play for young kids. The violence is not too much violent. It's not too much realistic. It has this feeling, at least it was my intention, to have this feeling of a comic book. You know, so it is action, but it is violent, but it's not really violence, you know. So the young, you know that it's a movie violence, it's a movie fantasy, so it will be appropriate for, you know, teenager as well as other men, action lovers, but it's not too painful to watch them, and they have some fun and innocence in them. And I'm happy to hear that it worked for you.
Yeah, but I will say.
I know that for others, because I get a lot of fan mails.
They did get my brother and I in a little trouble every once in a while, because you know when you see ninjas, you want to play ninjas, and a few things got broken, a few bloody noses here and there, but you know we were better for it, I think. So again, thank you very much.
Yeah, like, I do want to stress again, thank you very much for joining us here. Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome, and it was also awesome for me. I enjoyed it very much.
What were they thinking?
Holy frickin' poop, you guys.
Oh my god, I got to talk to Sam Firstenberg, the director of American Ninja and American Ninja 2, Ninja 3, The Domination, and Revenge of the Ninja, and Breakin 2, Electric Boogaloo. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!
I was hoping you were going to say that really long title really fast, too.
I haven't seen that, but I'm sure I'll be a big fan when I do get to see it.
But yeah, that was awesome.
So cool. Oh my god.
Fantastic guy.
What
Lots
a guy.
of story.
Oh man.
What a friggin' gentleman. Very nice guy. Yeah, again, more of these coming, guys. We're working on them. Working on getting some cool peeps.
Yes.
And Nathan's freaking out.
I'm Cloud9 all day. That's where I'm going to be. This was so cool.
But yeah, we thanked him already, but we're going to thank him again. It was really awesome that he agreed to do this.
Yep.
We should probably talk about what our movie is next week.
Oh, we should, I suppose.
So, take a listen. Here's the trailer!
On a beautiful lake, in a quiet town.
Dad, who's working? Probably some ancient Indian myth.
He's a slimy, wart-covered serpent who feeds on the bodies of prepubescent female children.
Josh, get life. All I want to know is if he's real or not.
Ashley Black is about to discover magic in the water.
The monster, he's real. He ate my cookies.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, between what everyone says,
native legend has it that he can change forms, change himself into another animal.
This is seriously affecting my development.
and what everyone believes.
Jack, have you seen the monster?
No, that was a dream.
Is what she knows in her heart.
They're killing him by putting toxins in the lake.
You sick?
Take the explosives and rig the dump site.
Josh, we can't let him do this.
I can drive this.
For every child who still believes, and for everyone else who has forgotten how.
There's nothing I'd like more than to see things the way you do.
There's magic in the water, where the legend ends and the adventure begins.
Yes'm. It's the Canadian classic, Magic in the Water.
Now, you gave your hint last week, and it was NES.
Yep.
It wasn't about the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo Entertainment System. And most technically, this movie is not about the Loch Ness Monster, as it is Canadian, and I believe set in Canada. It would be about the Ogopogo.
I mean, it's basically the Loch Ness Monster.
No, it's not. The reason why the Loch Ness Monster is called the Loch Ness Monster, because it is in Loch Ness.
In Halifax.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, Magic in the Water. I don't want to say much about it. It's pretty strange, and it's pretty wonderful. So
blame Big Dick McGee for this one.
Oh, that's right. Mariah picked this one for us, so we want to thank her. And I think she might even show up.
Oh,
so,
that'd be kind of fun.
Just a heads up.
Patty wanted nothing to do with us.
That's understandable.
Yeah, I get where she's coming from.
But yeah, so Magic in the Water next week. Get ready, folks. Check it out. I don't know if you can find it anywhere. Actually, no, I don't even think you can find it on YouTube.
You'd probably be able to rent it on YouTube. I think it was released by... It got at least somewhat of a studio release. I mean, it made it to VHS.
It was theatrically released.
Okay. It probably won't be too hard to track down. You might have to spend, $3.99 to rent it on YouTube if you want to watch it. But, there it is. Yeah.
You can do that, or you can just listen to us talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be all. Man, I don't think our ending would apply to what we've just done, because that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know what to say. What do you want to say?
Tongue-tied. Still getting over this. I can't even word right now. What am I thinking?
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm scared we exist in the Matrix.
I'm Jaslyn, and I'm bad at ad-libbing.
And you're listening to High Expectations, the promo. For our international listeners, you can appreciate our cute New Zealand accents. For our local listeners, you might bump into us in the street 3 times in the same hour. Our podcast is about pop culture,
sexuality,
relationships,
interesting hobbies,
banter, and ragging on each other.
You can find us on
Apple Podcasts,
SoundCloud,
Pocket Casts,
Podcast Addict,
or anywhere you might like to find podcasts.
Yay, please subscribe.
Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Noelle Heil, the host and creator of Heil on Life, the podcast where I talk one-on-one with people who inspire me. My guests come from all walks of life, different jobs and careers, and they all have different motivations that have helped them throughout their lives. I find their stories fascinating and hope that you will too. To learn more, find me on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, Tumblr, and Libsyn. And remember, we may have similar stories, but our journeys are all our own.
Hi, I'm Phil.
Whoa! Did someone just sign off of AOL?
I'm Paul.
I really don't have a lot on this.
Oh my god, this is rolling off the rails real quick. And I'm Dennis. I am so mixed up today, just don't even listen to me anymore.
And together we are...
Voltron! Well, no, not Voltron. We are Useless Debates in Pop Culture, a weekly...
Or we at least try to be.
...podcast that allows you to pick the winner.
Ding, ding.
By no means a
The internet strikes again.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll debate anything.
So if you want to hear debates on such useless topics as Best Val Kilmer Role,
Tombstone, or Best Movie Soundtrack,
American Graffiti, or the most successful former boy band member,
JT,
then tune into our show.
Your podcast is so well named.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts /iTunes,
Podbean, and Google Play.
And our website, uselessdebate.com.
All right, there we go. Thank God.